Hi, Badgers fans. This is Jason Galloway, the Badgers football beat reporter for the Wisconsin State Journal, here to bring you the 5 biggest questions surrounding the Badgers football team heading into spring practice, which begins March 12th. Let's start with the big one. Who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Badgers when they open the season against LSU? It's going to be a tight battle between Bart Houston, the senior, versus a redshirt freshman, and Alex Hornibrook. Obviously, Houston got to get that experience last year when he entered the game for Joel Stabby against Illinois. Did a pretty good job, made a lot of good plays downfield, also made some mistakes in that game as well, so he at least has some tape, some game tape that we can actually go off of. Now, when you look at Alex Hornibrook, it's kind of hard to know whether he's going to, what he's got until he gets into a game situation, but he was very impressive in spring ball last year, which is a big reason, I think, why Austin Cofincis transferred in and then he also played very well in fall camp. So that's going to be a battle to watch and one of the biggest storylines heading into spring ball. But moving on to the second question, can this defense replicate its success from last year? That's our second question. The easy answer is it's going to be very difficult. Obviously, with Dave Aranda leaving, a new defensive coordinator coming in, a new secondaries coach in Jim Leonard as well, after Durante Jones left for the Miami Dolphins. And then a lot of key players missing. 3 starters from the secondary are leaving, including a couple 3-year starters in Michael Caputo and Darius Hillary. You got Joe Schobert, who had a breakout season last year. He's off to the NFL. Obviously, you've got a lot of key pieces back, like Sojourn Shelton, a lot of the defensive line. Vince Beagle decided to come back for an extra year, which could be huge. But replicating the success they had last year when they were the number 1 scoring defense in the country, it's going to be a very tall task. And I'd be surprised if they were able to do that again. Question number 3, what will the hiring of Justin Wilcox do for this Badgers defense? New defense coordinator and new face in there for the first time in 4 years. Obviously, Dave Aranda was one of the best defensive coordinators in the country last year. He kind of elevated this Wisconsin defense to that number 1 scoring defense and to some of the top marks and pretty much every defensive statistical category you can think of. Wilcox is a guy that's coming off a tough 2 years at USC, but has a good track record. It'll be interesting to see. We don't expect this defense to change much from Aranda to Wilcox. They're going to keep the 3-4 scheme. They're going to try to keep a lot of things similar, but these players started to get really used to Aranda calling the plays. They got really used to his system. They got really comfortable with Aranda these past 3 years, and you kind of saw that gradual development over time. It's going to be interesting to see, with Wilcox in there, a new face in there, if there's going to be much of a drop-off. Obviously, we talked about as well some of the talent drop-off that we could see with some of the key players leaving on the defense. But I think Wilcox is a guy that may come in, and a lot of the USC fans weren't happy with how aggressive or his lack of aggressiveness on the defensive side. That may have had to do with the talent level of USC's defense as well. We'll have to wait and see how aggressive he is. Aranda was a guy that liked to bring a lot of different blitz packages, and it'll be kind of a wait-and-see approach to see if Wilcox takes that same approach. Moving on to our fourth question. Will this team be able to replace Alex Erickson at wide receiver? That's a really good question. Erickson was just such a solid player for Wisconsin these last 2 years. You look at a game like at Maryland this past season when the offense was really atrocious throughout the first half, and then in the second half they started looking for Erickson a couple of times, kind of got the ball rolling, and they were able to kind of pull away and win that game. It's really important for whoever the new starting quarterback is going to be to have that number 1 target they can look to and be a consistent threat down the field. I think Robert Wheelwright has a chance, if he can stay healthy, to break out and be that number 1 receiver that the Badgers will be looking for. I think he's probably the best bet. I think Jazz Peavy showed some good things as well down the stretch last year, and those 2 guys in particular I think will have to step up in order for the Badgers passing game to be as good as they want it to be this year. And then our final question, our 5th question heading into spring practice, how much better will this offensive line be for the Badgers in 2016 than it was in 2015? Obviously, they had some issues last year. They had some injuries during fall camp. They started the season really poorly. You could see the weaknesses against teams like Iowa and Nebraska early in the year. And then they started to slowly improve as the year went on. It never really got to the point where you'd like to see it. But against Minnesota in the regular season finale, there was 4 redshirt freshmen starting up there on the offensive line, and they really hammered the Gophers in that game. Obviously the only guy they're losing is Tyler Merritz at left tackle. They have Ryan Ramczyk, a transfer coming in who couldn't play last year. That the coaching staff really likes him, and he could be a guy that potentially takes over a left tackle. All those redshirt freshmen that got time last year are going to be a year older, a year more experienced. I think those guys playing a little too early last year could give them some valuable experience over these next few years to kind of grow into a better player than they would have if they were sitting on the sidelines. So there were obviously some growing pains last year, but I think with the whole offseason ahead of them, this offensive line can show that they can play a lot better. I think it will open up more lanes for Corey Clement on the ground. You could maybe see better protection for the starting quarterback, whoever that ends up being as well. It'll help the offense be a little more balanced, help the running game get back to where we've seen it in recent years before this past year. And those are the 5 biggest questions heading into spring practice, which begins March 12th. If you want to follow our coverage of spring practice, keep visiting Madison.com and follow me on Twitter at Jason_Galloway. And we will have all the coverage for you of spring ball and then into fall camp heading into next season.